You're listening to Catholic Chicago. Ahead, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Hello and welcome to the Black Catholic Initiative radio show here for the Archdiocese of Chicago, where we talk about the issues, the concerns, and the great things that are happening for our Black Catholic community here in the Archdiocese of Chicago. My name is Father Michael Trail, and I'm honored to serve as the host of the radio show, and I'm also extremely honored to serve as the pastor of St. Thomas the Apostle Catholic Church and School in the historic Hyde Park neighborhood. You can get this program anywhere that you listen to your podcasts, and we're also available on our YouTube page, Catholic Chicago. We're also available on the radio, old school, at WNDZ 750 AM. Last time in our episode, we're having a conversation with the Knights and the Ladies of Peter Claver and talking about their good work in a very local and particular fashion. If you remember last episode, we talked about their work and their upcoming award, which is the Archbishop James P. Like African American Male Image Award. And so what we're doing today on our episodes, we're going to continue our conversation about the good work of the Knights and Ladies of Peter Claver, but then also too hearing from more of a local, more of a context of just having a conversation about Black Catholics in general and how faith works in the life of Black Catholics. And we're continuing I'm honored to continue to have our guests here from last episode, Miss Bobbie Levy, who is the Grand Lady for the Ladies Auxiliary of Peter Claver, Court 181, and also a member of Court 181, Miss Tanya Woods. So welcome back again. Thank you to the both of you for being here again on the Black Catholic Initiative radio show. Last time you're welcome. Yeah, last time our conversation was really it was good, and we talked about just kind of like more of a broader view about the work of the Knights and Ladies of Peter Claver, and also a little bit about what you're doing at Court 181, and you shared a lot of good work, a lot of good things that you're doing over there. But we really didn't get a chance to hear about you all as people, because it's people who make up an organization, it's people who bring life to things, and so I'm wondering, could Bobbie, maybe I'll start with you. Could you just tell me a little about yourself, and just tell us a little bit about your story, if you're born and raised in Chicago, lifelong parishioner, just help us understand who you are as a person.
Okay. I was born actually in Memphis, Tennessee. I came to Chicago when I was 8 years old, and I came from very humble beginnings, and a single mom. In fact, the first place we lived was Henry Horner Projects. And I became Catholic. I was not Catholic. In fact, my grandfather was a Methodist minister. My uncle was a Baptist minister. And when I put my children in school, I put them in Catholic school at the time. And we had to take instructions. And we had to go to Mass one Sunday a month. And I was thinking to myself, well, they're Christians, and why should I have to go to church here, take them to church here, and they're going to be Catholic? So I took instructions and I joined the Catholic Church. And my son became Knights, Peter Claver. In fact, my oldest son was the Supreme Knight, Junior Supreme Knight from all over. They really loved Claver. So actually, I got into Claver to see what my children were doing. They were going to this meeting. And when I got in Claver, I never realized that I would become the Grand Lady, because I really admired those ladies. I thought, these ladies I would go to the meetings, and down at St. Albie, we would have a lot of meetings down there.
Right.
The grand lady down there, I just really thought a lot of these ladies. And our grand lady was named at the time. I had a lot of grand ladies, but the one I remember the most, the one who mentored me the most, was Lady Shirley Hartfield from St. Felicitas. And and so I became the junior daughter counselor. I worked with the juniors, and we did different things. We went to conferences and conventions. And also at my church, by me having, you always want to be involved in what your children are involved in. So when I was at St. Felicitas, I became started a junior choir because for my son, I have two sons. So we had a choir. And then I became the volunteer youth minister in the 80s. And I would, at St. Felicitas, and we would have, it was about 30 or 40 young people in that youth group that we started. And I was chairperson for Kajinga at one time.
Oh, yeah.
So my children and working through the church gave me the opportunity to practice Christianity, to practice being a Christian. And gave me an opportunity to grow, just like the lady Peter Claver has. And so it allows me to complete Christ's mission. And of course, that's our mission of love, unity, and Christian charity.
No, I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And I love this. I hear a couple of things that I think just are awesome. One, the beauty of Catholic school and the way that it helped to bring you into this community of faith, right, in the Catholic Church. I love that your children were a great catalyst and impetus for you to dive deeper into your own faith, and how Peter Claver was an opportunity to a vehicle by which you were able to do that. I mean, that's perfect, literally perfect. So, so thank you so much, Grand Lady, for sharing that. One of the things I love, especially about us as a people, is that we and as Black people, we love our story, and we have a rich story to tell, and to be able to hear just a really a personal journey like that, I think it's a really powerful one. So thank you for sharing that. And I know that our listeners, all of our listeners, have stories like that, where faith was real and it came alive, and where it's really tangible. So no, I really appreciate that. Tanya, could you tell us a little bit about your own story? Tell us a little bit about who you are, and some of the good things that you're doing.
Sure, I do appreciate that opportunity. And I'll just piggyback on what's already been said to say that not only do we just love a good story, right, as African Americans, but we have to remember that part of our coming to this country as kidnapped Africans and then enslaved, that's the method by which we kept our culture alive, was to tell stories, that oral tradition. We didn't have the benefit of the language and the written pen and paper here in this country in the same way that we were able to record our histories where we came from. And so, what may seem very folkloric is very intentional in many ways for us to have been able to keep our language alive, our culture alive, our traditions, our recipes, and all of those things is ingrained and indoctrinated in that oral tradition. So yes, we do like a good story and to spin a good yarn, but it kept us alive. Right. It kept us thriving as a community, and it continues to be the lifeblood of our community. My story is not that dissimilar from Grand Lady's. I am from Chicago. I'm a native daughter of Chicago. I grew up on Chicago's West Side, where I now have the opportunity to practice law and lead an organization called the West Side Justice Center, which is a holistic legal aid clinic situated in East Garfield Park. And that's the dash in between those years of growing up on the West Side and where I now do my work has a little bit to do with my story that brought me to the Catholic faith. I too grew up in Catholic schools, and our scripture says, come as a young child, right? Come as little children. Right. And so oftentimes children are exactly the conduit that brings us to faith. So There was a Catholic school on every corner in any a large urban area, but especially in Black communities and in brown communities, because we often, as families of immigrants, families that were working class poor, families who, scrubbed the floors of other families. A Catholic school was one way that you could offer your child a Christian faith-based education that was affordable. So we don't often, see that now. We may not get it when we look at those tuition bills, but when in the 60s and 70s and those Catholic schools were places that if your mom was a single mom or if your family was scraping it together, this Catholic school would take you. And your principal, that sister or that father would say, bring whatever you have, just come to church, make sure your children get to school every day and that they actually attend mass. And that was the price of admission, if you will. And so I was a little kid who grew up attending Catholic schools from day one. And my little Catholic school is still there on Taylor Street. It was then called Holy Trinity. It is now called, I think, Our Family or something similar. And it was a one-story Catholic school that also was adjacent to a school for instruction for young children who were deaf and hearing impaired.
Oh, yeah.
And the ministry there, and this is why I'm telling this very long story, was that we were helping and learning from each other, hearing impaired children with hearing able children, all under kind of this auspices of faith and mutual aid. And when First Communion came around, there's a little slip of paper that every family is asked to fill out. My mom forgot to fill out my slip of paper. It's really just as simple as that.
Right.
But I believed I was a Catholic in my heart of hearts from day one.
Right.
And although I was attended church, Protestant church, a non-denominational church on Sunday of universal faith, I attended faithfully Catholic schools up until my freshman year of college. And then later I attended Loyola School of Law. And so my mom would always say, we always knew you were Catholic. That's always where you felt comfortable. But it wasn't until a great crisis in my life, losing my love of my life, my college sweetheart, my husband passed away in 2008. And I never say it was a crisis of faith. I always had strong faith. My belief in God never wavered. But where I would choose to worship, how I would worship without the head of my household, how I would choose to worship with my children, that became the forefront of my mind. And so, like Grand Lady, my children, are what leads me and leads my faith, because we're going to all do this together.
Right.
And so as I left the church that I had been at for several decades, and where I had raised my children up to that point, I began to look at other faith homes where I thought I would be comfortable, where I felt like the teachings of Christ would resonate with my soul. But as I was reinventing myself as a widowed mom of two, that relationship with my pastor, I really just needed respite. I was always busy as a Sunday school teacher, busy as a reader, busy doing this and busy doing that, but my soul just needed rest. And so it was how I came to St. Albie. And at that time, we were visiting, my son and I, a couple of different churches. My daughter was in college. And at that time, one of the visiting priests was someone who had attended the seminary with my husband back in Quigley South many years ago. And my son and I were sitting on the pews, and he looked out in the audience and he said, I see a sister out there that I know. And he began to really, as they say, walk into my life.
Right.
And he said, I just want to acknowledge Sister Tanya, who's here. Father Larry Duras was still our lead pastor, but he was letting this young upstart take the pulpit. It was that feeling of acknowledgement, of being seen, but not being asked to do anything other than to sit there and to worship.
Right.
And my son said to me as we left Mass that day, he said, Mom, I like this place. I think we'll be happy here. And I said, okay, then this is where we shall stay. And so that began our story and our journey at St. Albie, then now St. Catherine Drexel. My son would go on to Catholic school, graduate from St. Ignatius High School, and his career has taken him far, as so has my daughter's. And my daughter would say to him all the time, my mom always wanted one of us to go to Catholic high school, so you're it, even though they had grown up in public schools.
Yeah.
And so I often think about my ancestors looking down on us and smiling and walking with us on our continued Catholic journey. And it does me great pride to be a member of Court 181 and a member of the Ladies Auxiliary of the Knights of St. Peter Claver.
No, thank you so much for sharing that, Tanya. I really appreciate just hearing your story and hear how God was working in and through your life and in your story. And especially one of the common themes between all three of us is the importance of Catholic school. I'm a product of Catholic school myself from the Archdiocese of Detroit, where I was born and raised. And even when I moved to Chicago, I went to Loyola University for undergrad. So I also got that Catholic college experience as well. That was very formational for me, And I think, and as the pastor myself, and having a school underneath the care of the parish, I see the importance of Catholic school and how it's a real blessing in the life of my students even now. And as both of you have shared your stories, how the importance of Catholic school is also part of, is a real fundamental piece of your own story, your own journey of faith, the way in which you were introduced to the church, but then also to the way in which you were able to find a home in the church. We're going to take a really quick break just to hear some of our commercials, and we'll be right back to continue our conversation with both of my guests here today.
Have an old bicycle that's not being used? Consider donating it to Catholic Charities Veterans Bike Project of Lake County. Skilled volunteers are refurbishing bicycles to make them safe and ready to be used by veterans to get to and from their new places of work. We also gratefully accept financial contributions that are used to purchase bike helmets and other safety accessories. Our veterans have faithfully served the United States, and now it is our privilege to serve them. For more information on the Veterans Bike Project of Lake County, call 847-782-4219. That's 847-782-4219.
Year 44 for me teaching. When I started here, there were teachers here that had taught me when I was a student. Now I'm the old person. Right now, I teach junior high math. I love when kids find what I'm teaching to be fun and they get it. I see that light bulb go off and it's a thrill. People are always amazed. What? You're here for 44 years? It's hard for me to believe, frankly. I love what I do. Every summer I think, oh, I miss the classroom. Even on the weekends, I think I can't wait to get back on Monday and teach those quadratic equations.
Shape the next generation of leaders. Teach. Apply today at archchicago.org/schooljobs.
And we're back with the Black Catholic Initiative radio show here in the Archdiocese of Chicago. We're continuing our conversation with two really dynamic women of faith, Tanya Woods and Bobbie Levy. Bobbie is the Grand Lady for the Ladies Auxiliary of the Knights of Peter Claver, Court 181, and Tanya is a member of that court as well. Just before the break, we had the opportunity to hear a little bit from both of them about their own faith story, their own faith journey, and how they came to where they are here today. And now that we're past the break and with the time that we have remaining, about 10 minutes or so, I want to just take the opportunity to continue our conversation about some of the good things that are happening right now. some of the things that are happening right now for you personally, but then also too, since both of you are members of St. Catherine Drexel, your parish has gone through the process of Renew My Church, where there was this combining of those parishes into this new lived reality. And so can you share a little bit about the work that is taking place at your parish right now?
Okay, well, one thing I just want to first I want to just go back to say that something I mentioned, and Lady Woods reminded me it would be remiss if I didn't say when I came from Memphis with my mom, who was single, during my years here in Chicago, I was married, and I was married to a man, Matthew Levy, and we raised our sons together. And he passed, just like Lady Woods reminded me. He died in 2016, and actually we had been married over 50 years. And by me coming from a single home, it made me wanted to raise my children, because I always wanted, it was just my mom and I always wanted to have a whole lot of people at the Thanksgiving table, like my girlfriend did down the street.
Right.
And so but they always say maybe you shouldn't ask for everything, because now on Thanksgiving we have too many people around the table. So I just wanted to mention that. But at St. Catherine Drexel, we do a lot of things. Like this summer, this May, we had a cotillion for the junior daughters. At Giorgio's banquet, we had 7 junior daughters that participated. And the good thing about that, we talked about doing all of this for young men, those young ladies who received $6,000, because when we do things like that, we use the money for something to better the church, the community, and our members. And so that's one of the things we're doing there. Of course, I do have to mention, since being at St. Catherine Drexel, at first, it just felt like I lost a family member when St. Felicitas closed. It was like it was a death in my family, because everybody didn't come down to St. Catherine Drexel.
Right.
They went every place, different churches.
Right.
So I was really just felt like we shouldn't have closed, and just felt devastated about it. But by me being Grand Lady of the Knights of Peter Claver, Ladies Auxiliary, being down at St. Catherine Drexel now, I would like to say that I have met the people like Lady Woods. I didn't know Lady Woods before I came down to Catherine Drexel. I have met people like Keanda, Sandra Boyd, and it's family. It's becoming a family, and we're all coming together, it seemed. In fact, this Saturday, I know you didn't ask me about this, but this Saturday, we are initiating in Court 181 8 ladies that was part of St. Catherine Drexel. So a lot of things are happening at the church. Father Paul, he has these just becauses, that's what he calls it, just because, to try to get us to mingle and try us to come together. We have ice cream socials in the summertime. We're having an adult party this coming the 17th, Saturday. So although the church closed, and I shouldn't say this, I always say this, and I really shouldn't say it online. But
Remember, you're on the radio.
on the radio. Thanks. Thank you. I have to play the old cards.
Right.
So thank you. So a lot of things we do down there. We have a food pantry. It's just like just a lot of stuff. And I am pleased that I am at St. Catherine Drexel. I know we had no control over St. Felicitas closing. And I do feel like the church closed, but I did get another family, and I got a new pastor that I really like.
That's great.
And
That's great.
really delivers the message to us.
That's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that. I appreciate, the good work. Thank you, Bobbie, for sharing some of the good work that's taking place at St. Catherine Drexel, because all of our parishes that experience Renew My Church, there's a real, I appreciate your honesty and just acknowledging that there is that sadness there, because you think about some of these communities that have been together for, 30, 50, 75, over 100 plus years, and then having to, pick up and move into a new community. There is that grieving process that is there, but there's also that welcoming of a new family coming together and creating a new identity that I think is stronger, a new identity that is filled with new life and new vigor. And I think with any family, that when you get some new members of your family, it spices it up a little bit, because you didn't get to know it. You're still getting to know each other, and really just kind of building up a community together, a community of love, a community of faith, but also a community who does a lot of good works. Tanya, I'm very interested to hear, you shared earlier before the break, you shared a beautiful testimony about your own life and your own journey of faith, and you shared a little bit about the important work that you do over on the West Side. Can you share just how your own personal faith influences your work as you work for justice?
That's a great question, because as you get older, you realize that if it doesn't all kind of come together, you don't have a lot of extra space to do a lot of extra things.
Right.
And so there's just some efficiencies that as you become self-actualized in your profession, in your faith, that you go, okay, there's only so many meetings I can go to, only so many service projects I can head up.
Right.
And so there's that efficient part of it. But in all honesty, for me, the career in the law was one that as a child and a young person, I would see attorneys and judges doing different things, but I did not see that path for myself. And we hear this story so often, far often than we should probably be hearing it in the Black community about, I never saw this, I never saw that. And so I really didn't know how to get there. I never saw two parents loving each other, so I didn't really know how to start a family. I never saw doctors that looked like me, so I didn't know how. But the amazing, triumphant, and hopeful stories are the ones who never saw it and did it anyway.
Tell somebody.
I never saw... And you've just heard Grandlady Bobbie talk about that. I didn't have that, but I knew I wanted it. My husband and I both came from homes where our parents were divorced, but we knew we wanted to be married and stay married. And so, I'm delighted, even though my husband is gone far too soon, and I'm sure Grandlady would say the same, but we stayed true to our vows till death us do part. And so I say all that to say is that, through life's way, you hope that you pick up some lessons and you say, I'm not here by accident or by happenstance. I'm here maybe in the face of a tragedy, but I'm here on purpose. There's something bigger than myself that's at work. And if I just become quiet, listen to, as scripture says, that still small voice, I might just hear what it is that Spirit is calling and asking me to do. And so while as a child, I may have wanted to do that, I didn't see the roadmap quite as easily. When I look back now and I talk to people who know me for at least 15 or 20 years, they'll say, oh, we knew that. Like, we knew you'd be a lawyer,
right.
And I was like, how'd you know? And they'd say, whatever their story was, whatever their interaction, whatever they saw inside of me at that time. And even up to and including some, recent friendships with people who I work closely with were like, that's a career we always saw for you. I credit a dean in law school who said, I got my first, grade that didn't look like an A when I was in law school. And it devastated me because I was like, oh gosh, how is this possible? Everybody thought, I'd be like the good wife on TV. I just like ace law school and, raise a family and, Angelique woman and all that stuff.
Right.
But I sat down with my dean and I said, I just don't really understand this grade, She says, Tanya, do you want to sit here and talk about this grade, or do you want to talk about what you're going to do with your life when you get out of law school? She said, now I can have a conversation with you about rules of law and how to perfect a better essay, or we can actually talk about the stuff that actually matters about what are you going to do when you get out of law school.
Right.
And that really became, that pivotal moment of why am I here and what am I doing this for? I didn't start law school to make a lot of money. I started it because it was a dream deferred that I saw an opening in the window of opportunity, even in the face of adversity, to follow a dream that I had put on the back shelf. Because by this time I'm thinking, you're too old, you got kids, you're single, you can't do it. Right. And luckily a lot of amazing women told me I could. So as I went through trying to discern what it was that, was intended for me in this career path, I just tried to really be obedient to spirit when those moments came, those moments of making a decision about which way you would go, up to and including, taking a job, many jobs that didn't pay very much while I was in law school, which was not necessarily, something that is looked favorably upon. You want to get that great internship, of course, great law firm. Right. But I chose to do things that were a little bit non-traditional as a non-traditional student. I even took a job that didn't pay a whole lot when I got out of law school, but for the experience that I knew it would offer me, the lifelong relationships that continue to pay dividends. Okay. And then even fast forwarding to the work that I'm doing now, left a law firm to basically try to figure it out again, and ended up volunteering for what was then a fledgling organization in 2016-17, put together by several attorneys and activists and community members who saw a need to be able to offer free, high-quality legal services on Chicago's West Side. Something that had once upon a time, in many ways, we would find a legal aid clinic here and there, like so many services that have dried up through the 90s and the 2000s that were community-based. And so those founders, said, let's do this on the West Side. And I went to basically volunteer. And next thing I know, I was being asked to be the executive director. And because I don't believe in accidents, I only believe in God. I recognized that I was there at a moment, even when I couldn't pay my mortgage, literally, to do something that was bigger than myself. And so now the West Side Justice Center, which was put together on spit and glue, I would pay my light bill when somebody made a donation, to the organization. We are now a multi-million-dollar organization funded by several government entities and donations from, many of the folks who are probably watching this show. And we have an opportunity not to be a big organization as a multi-million-dollar organization might imply, but actually 90% of that budget we grant to other community-based organizations across the state of Illinois to do community-based work. And so now I get an opportunity to, play Santa all the time, at least once a year. But really, honestly, to build capacity in communities of color, in Black communities, to strengthen our muscles in a way that often, our communities are overplayed by, constant police presence, criminalization, deficit in school, all the social determinants that we know about that disproportionately affect Black people. I get an opportunity to move the needle in the right direction. And so I can't imagine not doing this work. I wake up every day with a song in my heart. I don't mind working late hours. My children are adults and doing great activist work in their own right. And so my head rests on the pillow easily at night, knowing that if I am granted yet another gift to get up another day, if I can give someone the gift of a better chance, a better life, a better shot at justice, then I will have lived my life.
What a great blessing to see how your own life and how your blessing is a blessing to others. This does wrap up our time here. I want to thank you both so much for sharing your own story, sharing your conversation, and just sharing the way that God is working in your life and your own faith journey. I'm Father Michael Trail, and this is the Black Catholic Radio Show for the Archdiocese of Chicago. May God bless this Archdiocese and the Black Catholics in the Archdiocese of Chicago. God bless you all.